The night was quiet in the small valley, too quiet for a place where the wind usually sang through the tall pines. Evan Holly noticed it first. He had been sitting outside his wooden cabin, sharpening an old hunting knife, when the hush fell over the forest like a heavy blanket. The crickets stopped. The owls silenced. Even the river slowed its whisper. Evan stood up slowly. He felt something in the air, something sharp and charged. A rumble rolled across the sky. At first, he thought it was thunder. But when he looked up, he saw a streak of white fire cutting through the darkness. It wasn't a shooting star. It wasn't a plane. Whatever it was falling fast, too fast, and heading straight toward the valley below. A loud boom tore through the night. The ground shook under his feet. Birds fled from the trees in clouds of feathers, and the smell of burning metal drifted on the wind. Evan grabbed his jacket and flashlight. Most people would run away from an explosion. Most would wait for emergency teams or hide until morning. But Evan had never been like most people. Something inside him, maybe curiosity, maybe instinct, pushed him forward. He ran toward the crash, guided by the orange glow rising above the tree line. When he reached the clearing, his breath caught in his throat. A ship, something not of this world, lay shattered in the grass. Its metallic frame was twisted, glowing faintly blue with symbols he couldn't understand. Sparks flew from broken panels. Smoke curled upward like black, ghostly hands reaching for the stars. And there, lying near the wreckage, was a figure. Not human. Evan froze. His grip on the flashlight tightened. He approached slowly, carefully, his boots crunching on broken pieces of alien metal. The figure was small, curled on its side, trembling with shallow breaths. As he came closer, the beam of his light revealed more details. Skin soft blue, faintly glowing, hair silver white, tangled and spread like liquid moonlight on the ground. Clothing torn, elegant, made of shimmering fabric that looked too delicate to belong in a violent crash. Evan knelt beside the figure. It was a girl. At least she looked young, maybe late teens by human appearance. Her face was peaceful in shape, but her expression was twisted in pain. Her breathing was weak, barely there. "Hey, can you hear me?" Evan whispered. He didn't want to scare her, but he also needed to know if she was alive. He gently touched her shoulder. Her skin was cold, almost icy. At his touch, her eyes snapped open, bright violet, glowing faintly even in the dim light. She stared at him, confused, afraid. Evan raised both hands, palms open. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you. You crashed. I'm just trying to help." She blinked slowly, trying to focus. Her lips parted, and a cracked, hoarse voice escaped. "Home." The word was soft, almost broken. A tear slipped from her glowing eye. Before Evan could ask anything, her body went limp again. She fainted, her head dropping against his arm. Evan felt panic rise inside him. She was injured badly, deep cuts across her side, burns on her arms, strange glowing wounds that pulsed weakly like fading embers. She wouldn't live if he left her here. Whatever she was, whoever she was, she needed help. He didn't think twice. He slid his arms under her fragile body and lifted her gently. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless. Her wings, he hadn't noticed them before, small, delicate, folded behind her shoulders, brushed against his wrist. They felt like warm silk. Evan looked once more at the burning wreckage. No movement. No other survivors. No sign of anyone coming. The forest was silent again. Watching him, he carried her back toward his cabin, step by careful step, making sure not to jostle her wounds. "Don't worry," he whispered, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. "I'll keep you safe. You're not alone." The moon followed him through the trees, casting pale light on the alien girl in his arms. And as he crossed the river near his cabin, Evan realized something. His life had changed the moment she fell from the sky. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her world. But he knew one thing tonight. Destiny had landed in his hands. Evan spent the first night watching over the alien girl, unsure if she would live until morning. He placed her carefully on his old wooden bed, lighting a small lamp beside her. Her breathing was uneven, sometimes too fast, sometimes too slow. Each time it changed, Evan's heart jumped. He cleaned the dirt from her wounds, wrapped her burns with soft cloth, and whispered comforting words, even though she couldn't hear him. By dawn, exhaustion pulled at his eyes, but he didn't dare leave her side. For 2 days, she drifted in and out of a strange, restless sleep. Sometimes her fingers twitched. Sometimes she whispered words in a language Evan didn't understand. And sometimes she cried softly, tears slipping down her blue skin. On the third morning, everything changed. The sun had barely risen when the cabin shook with a sudden scream, high, sharp, terrified. Evan nearly dropped the cup of water he was holding. He rushed into the bedroom. The alien girl was sitting upright, trembling violently, her violet eyes wild with fear. She pressed herself against the wall, wings shaking, breath coming in sharp gasps. Hey, it's okay," Evan said softly, holding his hands up again. "You're safe. No one's going to hurt you." She didn't understand his words at first. She looked around the small cabin like it was a prison. Her eyes darted from the door to the window, then to him. Her body tensed like she was ready to fight or flee. Evan slowly lowered himself to the floor, sitting cross-legged to look less threatening. "You crashed," he explained gently. "Your ship. It's gone. You were hurt. I brought you here." Silence. Then the girl closed her eyes. Her trembling eased, but only a little. After a long moment, she whispered, "Where am I?" Her voice was delicate, musical, but cracked with pain. "You're on Earth," Evan replied. "A small planet. My home." She opened her eyes again, confusion filling her bright gaze. "Earth," she repeated slowly, tasting the word. "I have heard of it. A world with no star wings. No sky gates. I don't know what those are," Evan admitted with a small smile. A weak smile tugged at her lips for a moment, then faded as quickly as it came. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated, her expression twisting with sorrow. "Aralis," she whispered. I am Aralis of the Lyriel Dominion." "Aralis," Evan repeated quietly, letting the name settle in the air. "That's beautiful." Her eyes glistened with tears. Was. Princess Aralis." Evan blinked. "Princess?" The thought of royalty lying injured in his tiny cabin felt unreal, but before he could ask more, Aralis lowered her head. Her silver hair fell forward, hiding her face. "My ship was attacked," she said softly. "There was fire everywhere. I tried to escape through the Stargate, but it collapsed. I do not know what happened to my mother, to my people, to my home." Her voice broke at the last word. A small sob escaped her. Evan felt something tighten in his chest. He knew what loss looked like. He knew the pain of not knowing if someone you loved was alive. His own life had been filled with those kinds of silent wounds. He moved a little closer, careful not to frighten her. "You're safe now," he said gently. "I'll do whatever I can to help you." Aralis looked up at him. Her violet eyes were full of disbelief, like she couldn't understand why a stranger, a human from a world she barely recognized, would offer help without wanting something in return. "Why?" she asked in a small voice. Evan shrugged slightly. "Because you needed someone, and I found you." Aralis stared at him for a long time. Her breathing steadied. The fear in her expression slowly softened into something else, something fragile and warm. She touched the bandages on her arm and whispered, "You saved my life." "I just did what anyone should do," Evan replied. But Aralis shook her head. "No, many would have left me. My enemies. They want me dead." Evan's brows furrowed. "Enemies?" She nodded slowly. "A war broke through my world. Someone betrayed us. Someone powerful. I escaped. But I do not know if my mother survived." Her wings drooped, as if weighed down by sorrow. Evan gently placed a blanket around her shoulders. "We'll figure it out," he said softly. "One step at a time." Aralis looked at him, her face full of emotion. In that moment, she realized the truth. She had lost her kingdom. She didn't know if her mother lived, but she wasn't alone anymore. A human had given her something she thought she would never feel again. Hope. Aralis healed slowly, like a fragile flower trying to open after a harsh winter. Each day brought a little more strength, and each night carried a little less fear. And through it all, Evan stayed close, not hovering, not overwhelming her, but always near if she needed him. At first, Aralis barely spoke. She spent long hours sitting by the small window, staring at the sky as if searching for something far beyond Earth's atmosphere. Sometimes she would touch her chest, right above her heart, like she was checking if it was still beating. Evan learned quickly that silence didn't want company. She simply didn't have the words for her grief yet. One afternoon, while Evan cooked soup on his old stove, he noticed Aralis watching him curiously. "You use fire for food?" she asked softly. "Yeah," he said, stirring the pot. "Humans cook a lot of things this way." "On Lyriel," she whispered, "we only use sun flame crystals. Fire is too wild." Evan laughed gently. "Humans are wild creatures. Fire suits us. A tiny shy smile appeared on her lips. It was the first smile he had seen that reached her eyes. That small moment opened a door between them. Soon, Airless began asking questions, hundreds of them. What do humans fear? What do humans dream about? Why do you live alone? Evan answered honestly. Some truths were heavy, some were simple, but Airless listened to every word like human life was a treasure she had never known. In return, she shared pieces of her own world, stories of crystal forests that sang in the wind, of floating gardens, of star wings that allowed her people to glide through the air like birds, made of light. Her voice always softened when she spoke of her mother. She used to tell me bedtime stories about brave travelers, Airless said one evening, sitting near the fireplace. Heroes who crossed galaxies to protect the ones they loved. Sounds like a good mother, Evan replied. She was, Airless whispered, her eyes glimmering. That was the moment Evan noticed something shifting between them. It wasn't romance. Not yet. It was trust, slow, fragile trust, between two beings who had nothing but each other in a world that suddenly felt too large. Every morning, Airless walked outside with Evan, though her steps were slow and unsteady. Earth's gravity was heavier than her home world's, and each step took effort. Evan never rushed her. He simply walked beside her, hand out when she needed balance. Why help me so much? She asked once, breathless but curious. Because you're someone worth helping, Evan said simply. Airless didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not as a princess, not as a royal symbol, but as a person. At night, they sat near the small fire outside, watching the stars. Airless often stared at them with longing. My people travel between those lights, she said quietly. Somewhere up there, my mother might be alive. Or, her voice faltered, or she might not. Evan's heart tightened. He wanted to comfort her, but words felt small compared to the weight she carried. Instead, he reached out and gently placed a blanket around her shoulders. Airless looked at him in surprise, then lowered her eyes. Humans, she whispered, have such warm hearts. He shrugged. It's all we have sometimes. Airless turned her face toward the fire. Its glow reflected in her violet eyes. Thank you, she said softly, for saving me, for staying with me. You don't have to thank me, Evan replied. I'm not going anywhere. The wind carried the warmth of the flames between them. As days passed, Airless began doing small things to help around the cabin, sweeping the floor, organizing supplies, learning how to prepare simple human meals. She giggled the first time she tried to cut vegetables, nearly slicing them too thin. You humans use such sharp things, she said, laughing. Evan smiled. It's called cooking. She wasn't perfect at it, not even close, but watching her try brought light into the home that Evan hadn't felt in years. Some nights, when she thought Evan was asleep, Airless would stand outside, looking at the sky. Tears glimmered on her cheeks as she whispered in her own language, a prayer, a memory, or a message to her missing mother. Evan saw her once, standing alone with her wings trembling in the moonlight. And in that silent moment, he understood something. Airless wasn't just a crash survivor. She was a lost daughter, a lonely princess, a soul carrying a galaxy of grief. And somewhere in the quiet space between them, a bond was forming, gentle, unspoken, and deeper than either of them realized. Evan thought the quiet days would last forever. He thought the little peace he and Airless had found in his cabin could hold them safe from the world outside. But peace is fragile, especially when a princess has enemies. It began with a hum. Low, mechanical, impossible to ignore. The air shook. Trees quivered. Airless stiffened instantly, sensing danger even before it appeared. Evan followed her gaze toward the sky, squinting. A dark silhouette grew larger against the stars, a ship, black and jagged, descending with a roar that made the ground tremble. Airless froze. Her violet eyes widened. Her fingers dug into the blanket around her shoulders. No, it can't be, she whispered. They found me. Evan didn't understand her words, but he understood the danger. His instincts screamed at him. We need to move, he said urgently, grabbing her hand. The ship landed with a thunderous crash at the edge of the forest. Doors opened with a hiss. Armored soldiers stepped out, their weapons glowing faint red. They moved with precision, not like humans. Their eyes scanned the trees, and one soldier raised an electronic communicator. Airless swallowed hard. Daruk! She breathed, trembling. He betrayed us. He attacked my home. He wanted me gone. Evan didn't know what that meant. But the weight in her voice made it clear. This was not just a threat. This was life and death. Daruk emerged from the ship. Towering, fierce, his eyes burning red like molten metal. He looked down at them with a cruel smile. Princess Aerolus, he said, voice cold and sharp, you are to be returned to the Dominion. By my command. Resistance is futile. Aerolus stepped in front of Evan, wings trembling but still spread slightly in defiance. You will not take me, she shouted, voice stronger than he expected. I will not let you harm my mother or my people again. Derek's laugh was like grinding stone. You are weak, you are alone. And yet, even now you cling to this human. He is nothing, a toy to delay the inevitable. Evan's chest tightened. He had never been called a toy before. And he refused to be one. Run, he told Aerolus, his voice steady despite the fear building in his gut. We run now, Aerolus hesitated, fear flashing across her face. You shouldn't, don't argue, he said sharply, gripping her hand. I'm not leaving you. They sprinted through the forest, crashing through trees and underbrush. The human legs, while slower than the alien technology, were surprisingly resilient. Evan led the way, using his knowledge of the land to dodge, hide, and gain what distance he could. The soldiers pursued relentlessly, moving with unnatural speed. Laser beams hissed past them, burning the earth where they landed. Aerolus's small wings tried to catch the wind to lift her, but Earth's gravity was heavier than she remembered. She stumbled. Evan grabbed her arm and pulled her upright. Keep moving, he shouted. Evan, Aerolus cried, fear and frustration mixing. You cannot fight them all. Leave me. Run. No. Evan yelled, turning to face her for a split second before another laser scorched the path ahead. I will not leave you, not ever. They reached the edge of the valley. The forest ended, revealing a steep ravine. Behind them, Daruk and his soldiers closed in. There was nowhere to run. Aerolus's eyes filled with panic. She pressed herself against Evan. We're trapped. Evan held her close, breathing hard. He scanned the area, looking for any chance, any edge, anything that could help them survive. He realized something impossible. He was terrified, but he was not defeated. Not while Aerolus's life depended on him. You will have to go through me first, he said quietly but firmly, lifting a heavy branch like a weapon. I'm not leaving you. Daruk's face twisted into a snarl. Foolish human. You are nothing. Evan's heart pounded. But in that moment, he understood something powerful. It didn't matter if he was nothing. What mattered was courage. What mattered was refusing to let fear control him. And most of all, it mattered that he would protect this girl, this princess, with every ounce of strength he had. Aerolus looked at him, eyes wide, and in her gaze, Evan saw trust, the kind of trust that could not be given lightly. She was counting on him. And he would not fail. The night air held its breath. The hunt had begun. The forest edge was alive with danger. Evan's heart pounded like a war drum, but he didn't move backward. Daruk and his soldiers advanced steadily, their weapons glowing, cutting streaks of light across the darkening valley. The air smelled of metal and ozone, and every sound the crack of a branch, the whisper of the wind felt amplified, like a countdown to disaster. Aerolus trembled beside him. Her wings, now partially open, quivered with fear and frustration. Evan, you don't understand. They will kill you. Leave me. Run. Evan shook his head, his jaw tight. I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever. He tightened his grip on the metal rod he had found near the crashed ship, lifting it like a shield. It was heavy and awkward, but in his hands, it felt like a promise. Daruk stopped a few steps away, towering over them. You are weak, human, he sneered. You are fragile. You cannot protect her. Step aside, or be destroyed. Evan squared his shoulders. I'm stronger than you think. You'll have to go through me first. Aerolus stared at him in disbelief, her violet eyes wide with fear and awe. Evan, you can't. They are too many. I'm not afraid, he said, voice steady. Because I have to protect you. Daruk laughed, cruel and low. Foolish creature. You will die here, and she will return to me anyway. Then, without warning, the soldiers moved. Lasers shot across the clearing, sizzling into the dirt and burning the bark of trees. Evan felt the heat on his face. He dodged, rolled, and raised the rod to block the first strike. Sparks flew, but he held firm. Another shot passed dangerously close, and his muscles burned. But he did not falter. Aerolus's wings flared involuntarily. Energy crackled around her fingertips, but she froze, unsure if she could control it. She had never fought like this before. Her training as a princess had been ceremonial, never life or death. And now she realized the stakes were higher than she had imagined. Aerolus! Evan shouted. Trust yourself. You are stronger than you know. Her hands trembled, and then, instinctively, she unleashed a burst of energy. A violet shockwave radiated from her body, knocking 2 soldiers off their feet. Evan shielded her with his rod, barely avoiding another laser. Daruk's eyes widened in anger. Impossible! He bellowed. She awakened. Evan felt fear surge, but he did not let it control him. He knew he was outmatched, but he also knew one truth. He would not let Aerolus face this alone. Every step backward was a betrayal, every hesitation a failure. He stood firm, rod in hand, breathing heavily. One of the soldiers lunged at them, but Evan swung the rod with all his strength, hitting it squarely and sending it crashing into a tree. Another laser grazed his arm, burning painfully, but he ignored it. He was focused only on keeping Aerolus safe. Aerolus, seeing his determination, felt something awaken inside her. Her grief, her fear, her longing to survive, all of it converged into a single burning clarity. She could not lose him. She could not lose herself. With a sharp exhale, she stepped fully in front of Evan, wings wide, energy crackling across her skin. The forest glowed faint violet, and the soldiers staggered back, unsure of how to attack someone so powerful, yet so small. Daruk's anger reached a fever pitch. "You dare defy me, human and girl?" He screamed. He raised his weapon, aiming for Evan. Evan's eyes met Aerolus's. "Now," he whispered. In a perfect, terrifying moment, Aerolus focused all her energy. A wave of violet light exploded outward, throwing the soldiers backward, burning the edges of the forest, and forcing Daruk to stagger. Evan felt the heat on his skin, the power vibrating in his chest, and yet he did not falter. He had done what he came to do, protect her. When the light faded, Evan collapsed to his knees, exhausted and wounded. Aerolus ran to him, fear and relief battling across her face. She caught his shoulders, cradling him like he had cradled her weeks ago when she was too weak to move. Don't close your eyes," she begged, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "Please, Evan. Stay with me." Evan's lips curved into a faint, tired smile. "I'm here," he whispered, voice raspy. "Always. With you." For the first time, Aerolus realized the full depth of what this human had done. He had risked everything for her. And in that moment, she understood something undeniable. He was not just a protector. He was a hero. The soldiers had retreated for now. Daruk had vanished. And in the quiet after the storm, Aerolus held Van close, her violet eyes filled with a mix of awe, gratitude, and something deeper she couldn't yet name. Tonight, the princess had survived. And the human had shown a courage no alien army could match. The first light of dawn barely touched the valley when Aerolus lifted Even in her arms. His breathing was shallow, but he was alive. Her wings, now strong and steady, caught the early sunlight, shimmering with a violet glow. She held him carefully, as if he were the most fragile treasure in the universe. And in truth, he was because to her, he was more than just a human. He was her savior, her anchor, her courage made flesh. "Evan, we have to leave," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They may come back." Evan's eyelids fluttered. "Aerolus, where? Where are we going?" "To my home," she said, determination in every word. "To Lyriel. My mother, my people. They need to know I survived." He tried to sit up, weak and aching, but she gently pressed him back against her. "No, you are hurt. I will carry you." With a burst of power, her wings lifted them into the sky. The wind roared around them, but Aerolus moved with grace and control, guiding them through the forest, over rivers, and across mountains. The earth below blurred into greens and blues, and soon, the familiar stars of her homeland appeared in the distance. Evan watched silently, awed by the beauty of her world. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Cities glimmered with crystal towers, forests floated in the sky, and light-colored rivers curved like ribbons across the land. But what struck him most was the sense of life, of energy, of hope that seemed to radiate from everything. Aerolus's eyes glimmered as well, though they were wet with emotion. "Home," she whispered again, the word heavy with relief, fear, and longing. "I never thought I would see it again." When they approached the palace, alarms sounded. Guards appeared on terraces, crystal weapons raised, ready to strike. But then Aerolus landed, carrying Evan in her arms, and the entire court fell silent. The soldiers, the advisors, the servants, they all stared at the small human she held. Her mother appeared at the top of the main staircase. Queen Lyriel, regal and elegant, her eyes glowing softly like her daughter's. But when she saw Aerolus alive, something broke inside her. She ran forward, moving faster than any human could have imagined, and caught her daughter in her arms. Aerolus placed Evan down gently, then threw herself into her mother's embrace. "Mother, I'm home," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Queen Lyriel held her tightly, sobbing. "My child, my brave lost child, you have returned to me." Aerolus turned her head, and her violet eyes met Evan's. I brought him with me," she said softly. He saved me. He saved my life." The queen's gaze shifted to Evan. The humans in Lyriel's history had always been considered fragile, weak, and incapable of surviving in alien battles. Yet here was a single human, who had carried her daughter through danger, who had refused to leave her side, who had shown courage no weapon or army could break. "You," the queen said slowly, her voice full of awe, "you are extraordinary." Evan blinked, embarrassed and overwhelmed. He had never imagined being praised by an alien queen, much less one whose daughter he had saved. I just did what anyone would do," he said quietly. Aerolus smiled through her tears. "No one else could have done it like you did. You are my hero." The court erupted into whispers. Advisors, soldiers, and citizens all looked at Evan with astonishment. Humans, once thought insignificant, had proven their worth through courage, selflessness, and love. As the day unfolded, Aerolus's mother ensured Evan was healed with advanced technology that left him stronger than he had been on Earth. Aerolus stayed by his side, refusing to leave. Together, they walked through the palace halls, showing him her world, introducing him to her people, and explaining the story of his bravery, even in the midst of celebration. Aerolus and Evan found quiet moments alone. She would hold his hand and look into his eyes, grateful beyond words. "I owe you everything," she whispered. "Without you, I would be lost forever." "You saved me too," Evan said softly, touching her hand. "Because without you, I wouldn't know what courage really means, or what hope looks like." In that moment, both of them understood a truth that stretched beyond planets. Wars or titles, trust, sacrifice, and love simple. Human truths could change the fate of worlds. That night, Aerolus and Evan stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. The stars reflected in her violet eyes, and she smiled. Finally at peace. "I'm home," she said. "And so am I," he replied. For the first time, the human and the alien princess felt a future that was not defined by fear or loss, but by courage, loyalty, and the bond that had saved them both. And somewhere in the palace, Queen Lyriel watched them, realizing that this human so ordinary by appearance was extraordinary in every way that mattered. Humanity had proven, once again, that even in the vastness of the universe, courage and heart were the greatest powers of all.